Have you ever had the strange feeling of living something that, in some inexplicable way, you had already dreamed of when you were a child? As if that small and innocent version of yourself was silently smiling on the inside. Most people believe that growing up means abandoning fantasies, trading dreams for responsibilities, and burying that inner child who once believed in miracles. But what if it's exactly the opposite? There is a hidden truth that few people notice. Sometimes maturing is not about forgetting who we were, but about remembering more deeply who we were always meant to be. Carl Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are, begins with the reunion with that forgotten part. But what does that really mean? And why is it a form of healing? In this video, we will explore in a subtle and immersive way how the past and present intertwine in the construction of our identity. How the child you once were still shapes, even today, the invisible contours of your self-love, your evolution, and your ability to recognize yourself. Don't expect a direct answer. What we will discover here won't be delivered through ready-made explanations. It will be felt, little by little. Because the answer you're looking for may not be where you think. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Sometimes the past doesn't disappear. It just changes form. It disguises itself as choice, as pattern, as coincidence. And without realizing it, we keep repeating stories we thought we had already left behind. It's as if every gesture we make today silently carries the echo of an old memory. One we may no longer remember, but that still guides us like an invisible script. And it's at this point that our inner child begins to whisper. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand it simply observes, waiting for the moment when we're able to recognize it in the small details, in the way we love, in how hard we are on ourselves, in how we run from what scares us. And then everything starts to make sense. That irrational fear of being rejected. Maybe it was born the day you weren't heard. The compulsion to please. Perhaps it arose when you learned that love came with conditions. But there's one detail that changes everything. Because it's not about going back in time. It's about realizing that time never really left. Time is not linear. It's a spiral. And every turn either brings us closer to ourselves or further away. Childhood doesn't end at 12, it just changes scenery. What was once a room filled with toys is now a world filled with demands. But within us, the essence remains intact, waiting to be seen with the eyes of compassion. Have you ever noticed how certain present situations trigger disproportionate emotions? A harmless comment that hurts like a deep offence. A careless gesture that unleashes a wave of insecurity. That's not a coincidence. Those are old parts of you asking to be heard. It's our inner child knocking at the door of our awareness. And this is where the healing begins. When we stop running from those parts and start listening to them. When we look at the past, not as an enemy, but as a map. Because growth is not about erasing scars, but about understanding why they exist. And what they still want to tell us. What few people understand is that the pain we carry from childhood doesn't disappear with time. It simply adapts. And when we deny that past, we also deny a fundamental part of our identity. But when we embrace it, when we look into the eyes of that child and say, I see you, I understand you, and I'm here now, something starts to transform within us. And it's in that silent transformation that we rediscover self-love. Not the kind built on empty affirmations, but the one that is born from the honest recognition of who we were and who we are becoming. Because to love yourself is also to honour your own story. This brings us to something even deeper. the greatest and most important problems of life are all, in the final analysis, unsolvable. They cannot be solved, only outgrown. Carl Jung pain often teaches us to forget. It says, don't dream, don't feel, don't believe. It whispers that it's safer to protect yourself than to try again. But it doesn't always win. In the silence of our traumas, there's something that insists on surviving. The childhood dream. That pure, almost naive desire to be happy, to be free, to be whole. It's strange to think that even when everything seemed lost, a small part of us refused to give up. This part lives hidden between the lines of our simplest gestures. In the spark that lights up our eyes when we see something we love. In the tear that escapes when we watch someone achieve what we once dreamed of. It's the inner child saying, I'm still here. Do you remember what you used to dream of when you were little? Not just the jobs or the toys, but the feelings. The longing to be admired, to be loved without having to shape yourself, to run without fear, to create without judgment. These dreams don't die. They simply retreat to a corner of the soul, waiting for a safe space to breathe again. But what few people realise is that often our greatest talents, our creative impulses, our most sincere passions are born precisely from the pain we try to hide. What has survived sadness is what holds the most power to guide us. It's no coincidence that so many people discover their purpose after going through something that once felt unbearable. It's as if pain clears away the excess, removes the noise, and leaves behind only what truly matters. And what matters almost always resembles that old childhood dream. Maybe for a long time you believed that dreaming was a weakness, that the adult world has no room for fantasy. But what if it's just the opposite? What if true maturity is protecting what is most pure within us? This confronts us with a choice. Will we continue to deny this vital impulse? Or will we allow it to flourish, even among the scars? The answer to this question defines the course of our identity. Because what survives pain carries the strength of everything we couldn't destroy in ourselves. And it is this quiet strength that reveals who we truly are. This brings us to something even deeper. Unlived life is a disease from which one can die. Carl Jung. Somewhere along the way, we learn to measure the worth of our existence by results, achievements, numbers, goals reached. But we were rarely taught to honour what truly matters. The journey, the simple act of continuing, even when every part of us wanted to stop. There is a silent strength in those who have survived their own abysses, an invisible dignity in every step taken with fear, in every choice made with a patched-up heart. Continuing on is sometimes the purest form of courage, because it requires more than physical strength, it requires presence. And presence is what reconnects us with our essence. The inner child that lives within us didn't dream of results. It dreamed of the path, of discoveries, of encounters, of learning. And in many moments we forget that. We start seeking approval, recognition, forgetting that simply living with truth is already a form of victory. But there's one detail that changes everything. It's not about always being okay, nor about never failing. It's about realizing that every fall had a purpose, that every pain carried a subtle lesson, and that standing tall, even with tired eyes, is proof of an invisible yet transformative evolution. Honoring the journey also means accepting that it was imperfect, that we made mistakes, that we ran away, that we denied parts of ourselves, but still, we chose to keep going. And that silent choice shapes who we become. Because every new beginning carries a kind of self-love that no one sees, but that holds everything together. And along this path, every small decision matters. The day you got out of bed, even without the will to. The moment you said no for the first time. The time you cried in secret, but then took a deep breath and moved forward. All of that is part of your story, and it deserves to be honoured. When we look back with eyes of compassion, we realise we survived versions of ourselves that were learning how to live. We weren't weak. We were simply human. This brings us to something even deeper. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. Carl Jung. For a long time, we looked for references outside ourselves. We wanted to be like someone else. We followed models, standards, ideals. But there comes a moment on the journey when everything goes quiet, and a question arises that changes everything. What if I could be my own inspiration? Being your own inspiration is not an act of arrogance. It's a gesture of deep self-love, a return to the sacred that lives within us. Because only those who know the pain of self-abandonment understand the power of reclaiming themselves. And this reclamation doesn't happen all at once. It is built, slowly, in the everyday. It's when you look in the mirror and see not just a body, but a story. When you realise that your tired eyes carry more than dark circles, they carry the memory of someone who survived. When you understand that your growth no longer depends on external applause, but on the inner silence that recognises you. What few people understand is that being your own inspiration isn't about grandeur, but about integrity. It's saying, I'm proud of who I'm becoming, even if no one claps. It's choosing every day to nourish your own light. The one that once almost went out. The inner child never wanted fame. She only wanted to be seen, to be loved, to be heard. And when you become that loving presence for yourself, something shifts. You stop chasing validation and begin to walk with authenticity. Because now there is someone inside you saying, I believe in you. Being your own inspiration also means learning to comfort yourself on hard days. It means understanding that strength is not the absence of pain, but the ability to keep loving yourself even in moments of struggle. It's in this space that true identity begins to bloom, when we are no longer trying to be someone, we are simply being. And that presence transforms. Because when you are inspired by who you're becoming, you also inspire the world around you. Effortlessly, without seeking attention, just by living truthfully. This brings us to something even deeper. The life that is not reflected upon is not lived. Carl Jung. How many times have you truly stopped to look at yourself, not with criticism or demands for you, but with tenderness? Recognizing your own growth is an act of courage because it requires looking at who you once were without shame, and at the same time, looking at who you're becoming without fear. We live in a world that celebrates goals but rarely honors the process, that rewards results but overlooks the silences, the restarts, the days when simply moving forward was a miracle. And yet you kept going. You grew. You held on. Maybe you're still waiting for a big achievement to feel proud of yourself. But what if I told you that the real achievement is in the small gestures? The day you chose to walk away from something toxic. The moment you said enough. The morning you decided to take care of yourself, even if just for a few minutes. But are we ready to accept that? Recognizing your own growth with love is seeing beauty where there was once only pain. It's realizing that your scars are not marks of weakness, but reminders of where you've been. And in that recognition, your inner child begins to smile again. Because deep down, all she ever wanted was to see you become exactly this. Someone who treats themselves with respect, with gentleness, with self-love. Growth doesn't scream. It whispers in every more conscious choice, in every calmer reaction, in every moment you forgive yourself. And it's in that silence that healing lives. Because when we allow ourselves to clearly see how far we've come, we stop being prisoners of the past and become creators of the present. Loving your own journey is one of the most revolutionary acts there is, because it teaches us to be loyal to our truth, even when the world expects something else. And in that space of authenticity, something rare begins to bloom. Peace. And then everything makes sense. For so long we searched outside for what had always been within. We tried to shape ourselves, to hide, to fit in, believing we had to be something different to be loved, recognized, accepted. But that entire search led us back to the origin. The truth is, you are becoming everything your inner child once imagined. Not because everything is perfect, but because despite it all, you chose to keep going. You chose to love yourself even on the darkest days, and that quiet choice is the purest form of healing. It's not about conquering the world, it's about conquering yourself, becoming the adult your inner child once needed. Someone who listens, who validates, who welcomes. Someone who no longer needs to hide. And in that moment, something within you awakens. Because now you see that every pain, every fall, every silence and every restart brought you here. That growth didn't come without struggle, but it also didn't come without purpose. And for the first time, you look at yourself with true compassion. For the first time, you truly see yourself. And then everything makes sense. The child you once were didn't want you to be perfect. She only wanted you not to give up on her. And you didn't. You listened. You felt. You remembered. In the end, the answer was always there. In the smile that returns even after tears. In the self-love that blooms even among ruins. In the identity that strengthens. Even when everything around you tries to make you forget who you are. But are we truly ready to accept this? Are we ready to honour our story with tenderness, not guilt? To look within and see not a burden, but a temple. Maybe the greatest revolution of all is finally saying, I am everything I once dreamed of becoming. And that is healing. You are becoming everything your inner child once imagined. And maybe, just maybe, that's already enough. Because this journey you've walked with falls, doubts, rebuildings and rebirths is living proof that healing doesn't come like a lightning bolt that transforms us all at once, but like a steady breeze that slowly shapes who we are, with patience, with presence. Today you hold in your hands the most important choice of all, to continue this path with awareness, with self-love, with respect for your identity and for your evolution. By recognizing everything you've overcome, you not only honor yourself, you become an inspiration. And you inspire those around you, because being true to yourself is, in itself, a revolutionary act. And every step you take in that direction strengthens the inner child who always believed in you. Now is the time to take the first step. Start applying these ideas today and let me know in the comments how the experience was for you. Tell me in the comments which of these reflections touched you the most, or if you're already reconnecting with your inner child, share how that has transformed your life. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. And if you want to dive even deeper into this process of healing and self-discovery, watch the recommended video above. It may open doors you didn't even know existed. See you in the next video.